Now that you understand who is and who is not listed in a family listing, we move on to coding family relationships. Establishing and verifying who is in the family unit is one crucial piece of the family listing. The second, equally important task is to code the relationships correctly using the PSID concepts. This will determine the flow of the interview as well as the accuracy of the data. It also helps to follow each person in the sample from wave to wave. People in the FU are related in different ways. One member of a family can be a wife, mother, aunt, and mother-in-law all at the same time. In order to ensure consistency in coding the relationships, we always code everyone's relationship to the same person in each FU. That person is called the reference person, or RefPer. Every other relationship in the family unit refers to the reference person, the relationship to reference person, which we abbreviate RTH. For example, in a family unit, you may have a man, his wife, his son, his wife's daughter from a previous marriage, and his wife's mother. The relationships to reference person for this FU would be male reference person, female spouse, son, stepdaughter, and mother-in-law. There are two basic categories of relationships to reference person. Major relationships are reference person, spouse, and partner. Minor relationships are everyone else in the FU. These others are called other family unit members, or OFMs. OFMs can be children, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, boyfriends, girlfriends, and so on. The distinction between the major and minor relationships to reference person is extremely important because we collect different amounts of information about them. Reference persons, spouses, and partners are considered the major contributors to the family finances. We ask almost every question you could imagine about their jobs for the previous 2 years: wages, business interests, pensions, accumulated wealth, health, computer use, and much more. OFMs, on the other hand, almost always contribute much less to the family economic situation, so we collect much less information about them. We ask about any jobs for the previous year and about a few categories of income, but we don't gather nearly the amount of data that we do about reference person, spouses, or partners. This means that a decision you make about whether someone in the FU is a reference person, spouse, partner, or OFM can make a big difference in the quality of the interview data. If someone should have been the reference person or spouse partner but is coded as OFM, approximately half of the data will not be collected. And if you make someone a reference person or spouse partner who should have been an OFM, then we're spending the respondent's time and patience unnecessarily as we ask them many questions we did not intend. These type of errors also create additional work for PSID's data processing group as they try to correct those they can by hand. This process can take many hours, if not days, of work. Who is the reference person then? There are specific rules that, when applied properly, always lead to a single correct answer. In most cases, you will not need to choose who in the FU should be listed as the reference person. The people who were in the family in the previous wave will be pre-listed. Their relationships to reference person will also be shown in the family listing. In the majority of cases, nothing will have changed, so the reference person will simply be the same person who was the reference person last wave. You will not need to change who the reference person is. In those cases where the family has changed, and you do need to determine a new reference person, you will be following a few simple rules about who to choose. The reference person is the reference point for coding all relationships in the family. Note that the reference person may or may not be the respondent, the person you interview. You may never even speak to the reference person. It was a different time in 1968 when the study started, and it was at that time that the PSID reference person rules were created. Originally, the term reference person was head, and in the case of a married couple, the male would be the head of the family. In the PSID's early history, we asked all of the financial questions about the person with the most financial responsibility for the FU. That was assumed to be the male half of a married couple. The wife was either not expected to work outside the home, or at least was not expected to be the major wage earner. Of course, nowadays that is no longer true. For example, the spouse partner may be the main wage earner in the family, or share the financial responsibility equally. Now we ask the exact same questions about the reference person and the spouse partner. Still, it's important that we have clear rules for reference person selection. Although the PSID has broadened to be more inclusive of same-sex couples, the rules have not changed for opposite-sex couples. As you've learned, one important aspect of the PSID is its longitudinal design. We need to stay consistent across decades of data collection, otherwise there could be enormous difficulties for researchers who want to use the data. So the rule for reference person selection for opposite-sex married couples is that the male is the reference person. Financial responsibility does not factor in. In a moment, we'll talk about how we handle long-term cohabiting relationships on the study, but note that this rule does not apply in short-term relationships, such as boyfriend or girlfriend. Over time, the FES has made some changes in the family listing to better account for same-sex marriages and partnerships. Previously, a same-sex partner was not coded as a spouse partner, but that has changed. The rules for selecting reference person for a same-sex couple are slightly different. The reference person will always be the followable person in a couple, and you will not need to update that. We will go over this in more detail shortly. Of course, there are family units where there is a single adult in the house, or where there may be several single adults, for example, an adult daughter and her mother who live together. In the case of a single adult household, that person is the reference person, be it male or female. In the case of more than one single adult in the household, you will select a reference person by asking questions about who has major financial responsibility for the family. Example, whose name is on the mortgage or on the lease. If that still doesn't yield a definitive response, you will consider who has follow status, and then, as a last resort, who is closest to age 45. If the adult in this study, the sample person, has been living with a boyfriend or girlfriend for less than a year, then you do not need to change the reference person. One important note, in most cases you will not have to change the reference person. If there are no major changes in the family since last wave, no one has moved in or out, no one has gotten married, and there's been no divorce or death, the reference person will simply be the same person as the previous wave. For the typical cases of family change, you will learn more about how to choose a new reference person later in the presentation. The less typical cases will be covered during training. Let's move on to the next major relationship to reference person, the spouse. This one's easy. The spouse is the other half of a legally married couple, whether opposite sex or same sex. A married couple is always reference person and spouse. It doesn't matter how long they've lived together or been married. Even if they married the day before the interview, they will be reference person and spouse. We have a large number of couples in the study who live together but aren't married to each other. We treat these couples differently depending on how long they've been living together. Some of these relationships are fairly short-term. Boyfriends and girlfriends are always part of the FU, but they are OFUMs. We only collect minimal information about their finances. Of course, some of these relationships become more permanent, and the financial contribution to the household by the partners becomes like that of a married couple. In order to capture that, we have to ask the financial questions about both partners. The PSID has a simple rule to determine who meets the threshold to go from being a boyfriend-girlfriend OFUM to the major RTH of partner. A relationship is considered more permanent once the couple has been living together for 1 year. Thus, the definition of the RTH of partner is the other half of an unmarried couple who have lived together for 1 year or more. Note that in an opposite-sex couple, where the male is always the reference person, this will be the female half of the couple. Living together means they actually have lived together that long. The R may tell you that they've been together longer, but you'll need to probe to determine how long they've lived together. The R may also mention that they had a break during the year. For the purposes of FES, this doesn't matter. Finally, the R may also say that they didn't live in the same location for the whole year. For example, they lived together in an apartment and then moved together to a house. Again, for the purposes of FES, that does not matter. What does matter is the 1-year rule. Living in the same FU for 365 days or more as of the date of the interview qualifies a boyfriend or girlfriend as a partner. Remember, too, that the rule does not apply in the case of legal marriage. A spouse is a spouse, even if they moved in together after the wedding, which was yesterday. Applying the 1-year rule correctly is very important because it impacts all relationship to reference person assignments. Partner status triggers much more data to be collected. In summary, the 1-year rule applies to all unmarried couples who live together. If they've lived together for 1 to 364 days, they are reference person and girlfriend or reference person and boyfriend, not partner. And they are always included in the FU because they're in a romantic relationship. If they've lived together for 365 days or more, they are reference person and partner. And they are always included in the FU as they have a romantic relationship. You should enter an F2 note indicating the date they moved in together. Remember, you will start each interview with a preloaded family listing. If you see that the reference person was living with a boyfriend or girlfriend when they were interviewed in the last wave and they still live together, the 1-year rule should automatically be applied by the interviewer. There are 4 special relationships to reference person that you will use only with permission. These are used in families where a sample reference person is married or in a partner relationship, but where the interviewer has been informed, in the past or the present, that the spouse partner does not want information given out about him or her. In those rare cases, and only with permission from study staff, one of these relationship to reference person codes is assigned, making him or her an OFUM. In this way, we capture the fact that he is in the FU, but the partner-spouse data will not be captured. There are 2 things to note about using this relationship to reference person. You may never assign it or remove it without explicit permission from the study staff. However, if a person is pre-listed with one of these RTHs on the family listing, you can leave it that way and proceed without special permission. If circumstances change and the person becomes cooperative, you may contact your team leader to get permission to change the RTH appropriately. This will require a reevaluation of all relationship to reference person codes in the family.